Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to this week's episode of Build It with Tim. Today we're talking about using CSS classes with display rules. So this is a native feature inside of Tadabase, and it allows us to add CSS classes, remove CSS classes, hide and show things based on CSS classes, all within display rules themselves. Okay, so we're going to be using a form component, the display rule feature, and the ability to add custom CSS classes throughout Tadabase in order to clean up a form to make it more efficient so we don't have to actually add as many display rules as we normally would, and just to make it an overall better user experience. All right, so let's jump into the actual finished application so I can show you what it looks like when a user is using the form, and then I'll go ahead and show you how to build it. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a minute in the builder. Here is our finished product that we're going to take a look at. Okay, this is a simple form to do some sort of youth sports registration. Okay, and we can fill out our child name and email. And then based on the selection that we pick, we're going to show an image. We're going to show the football fields or the fields that match the program we selected. And no matter what we pick on, it's always going to show us the right ones. Okay, so it doesn't matter which selection we make. You see football loads with football, hockey loads with hockey, and baseball loads with baseball. Okay, so let's jump back to the builder and I'll show you how to get this done. Okay, so here we are inside of the Tadabase builder. And in this application here, I have a pretty simple form. That's all I'm doing. I'm just collecting registration information for parents to sign their children up for sports, whatever youth sports are available in the local area. Okay, so all of the information is collected on one form. And I can then use this form to manage my registration, so on and so forth. Okay, but that's really not the point here. The point is just how to style this form and use those display rules. Okay, so here's all of our fields. Right now, this is probably a smaller version of what some forms could potentially look like, but hopefully you'll get an idea of how this is all going to work. And here is the form itself. Okay, so if I preview this form without any modifications to it whatsoever, then what would happen here is a parent's going to go through and they're going to fill out their child's name, their contact email, and then they're going to select the program that they want to be involved with, and then they're going to have to match. Okay, I selected football, so I'll have to select football division, the football equipment that I need, and right, they're going to have to like go through and pick each one. So again, this is like a smaller version. I didn't add as many fields as as you might have in your application or your data table, but just a small example here. Okay, so here we are back in the builder, okay? And we have a simple data table here of sports registration. So the idea here is that a parent is going to be signing their child up for some sort of youth sports in the local area, and they have the option to pick a program, pick a division, pick any equipment that they might need, okay? And then eventually process that whole form and get that registration completed. So I've added a couple fields here. Well, I've done three different programs. We did football, hockey, and baseball. And then we're selecting a division, and then we have to select what equipment might be needed. Okay, so actually let me go in and add this here. Right, okay, and then they're going to be presented with a cost. I mean, you could process this form however you want. I put a cost in here so the parent can see that, and then you could pass that into the Stripe checkout feature if you wanted to. But that's the general idea. So if I preview this form without any modifications at all, you can see it's kind of messy. So the idea is I want to select youth football, and I only want to show the fields on the form that are related to youth football. Okay, same with hockey, same with baseball. So we can do this using display rules. Now, the normal way that some people might go in to do this is they add a display rule and they say when the program of youth football is selected, then we want to um, show all of the football fields. Okay, we have to make sure that we're showing all the fields and hiding all the others. Okay, but there's an easier way to do this, because what's going to happen is as you're building out all these display rules for each selection, you're going to end up with a massive list of conditional rules, right? If something is this, then hide or show this, and it's just going to be a big mess. So there's an easier way to do this. We can keep the same selection. If the program selection is youth football, then what we're going to do is we're actually going to show a CSS selector. Otherwise, we can hide that CSS selector. So the reason that this helps us so much is because on the actual form builder, we can assign a row a CSS class. Okay, so what that looks like here, let's actually get rid of everything on the form and let's make 4 rows. Okay, the first row is going to have the child name and the email. The second row, and I'm sorry, and the program selection. The second row, we're going to give a CSS class of, let's say, football. The second or third row, sorry, this third row, we're going to give a CSS selector or a custom CSS class, I'm sorry, a custom CSS class of hockey. And the last row, we can give a custom class of baseball. Okay, now if I start to add fields here, so all of the football fields are going to go into the football row. All of the hockey fields are going to go into the hockey row. And then lastly, all of the baseball fields are going to go into the baseball row. Awesome. Now, inside the rules, we can continue setting this up. So, um, if we select youth football, then we want to show the CSS selector. Now, this is the difference between a selector and a class. Is the class is specified inside the actual HTML of the page that gets loaded. So that is a word or a phrase or something, some sort of like value that's contained inside of quotation marks. Now, when we are actually styling a page or styling that class, we need to use what's called a CSS selector. In order to select a CSS class, we use a dot, and then we'll say football. Okay, so that's one rule. Second rule, if program selection is youth hockey, then show CSS selector of dot hockey, otherwise hide. The last rule is if program selection is youth baseball, then show the CSS selector of .baseball, otherwise hide it. Okay, so we were able to condense this into 3 rules. Basically, if the program is this, then show the entire row based on the CSS class that we gave it, and otherwise hide it. Okay, so let's preview this page now and see if that looks any different. And it does. So here we can enter the child's name and the email. And then if we select football, then we see all of the football fields because they're contained within the row where the custom CSS class is assigned. And then if we switch over to hockey, then you can see it changes to hockey. Baseball is going to change to baseball. Okay, now we can take this a step further with that utilization of CSS classes inside of display rules. And to do so, we're going to, actually, let me go back here. We are going to display an image based on whatever program is selected. Now, what you can do with the CSS selectors inside of display rules or CSS classes as well is we can just add classes, we can remove classes. So you can get incredibly creative with whatever you'd like to do inside of a form just by adding a class or removing a class and then writing your CSS on the page to style the form however you want. So if you wanted to change colors, change text size, animate something, add an image, you can do anything that you want when you're adding a CSS class as long as you can write that CSS code. Okay, so here we are back inside the form. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some rules, or not add rules, but we're going to use these 3 rules, and we're going to here. Let's do this. We're just going to add some declarations. We're just going to add some actions as part of the rule. So this is going to be the football rule. This is the hockey rule. This is the baseball rule. All right, so let's just hide these ones, get them out of the way. So what's going to happen here? Okay, we want to, if the program selection is youth football, we're going to show the whole row with the CSS class of football. We're also going to add a CSS class to the program selection field. And that is going to be, we're going to call that football image. Now this can be whatever you want. I've already wrote this code, so I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. Um, but you can call this CSS class whatever you want. You just have to make sure that when you are writing your CSS, you have to target that specific class using that as a selector. All right, so what this is going to do, let's finish off the other ones, and then I'll actually come back and show you some more modifications that we have to make. Add CSS class to program selection. We'll call this, well, this is hockey image. And then the last one, add CSS class to program selection field, and this is baseball image. Okay, so let's say you have logos or something for the youth programs that you may have, and you want to show those based on whatever selection people pick, but you're not actually storing them inside of a data table or anything. You just want to dynamically show them right on the form itself. Okay, so let me pull up the code that I have here, and we'll go ahead and paste that into our CSS tab on this page. Here's the code, and I'll explain what this does for each one. So you'll probably recognize the actual classes here: football image, hockey image, baseball image. Now what's happening after that with the double colon and then the word after is this is what's known as a pseudo class. So this is actually just like a um, it's appending this to the end of this particular element within the page itself. I think it's probably the easiest way to explain it. But what we're actually doing at that point is this section where we're saying, let's give this section that we're creating a background image, and then we're styling that background image. So I'm loading in, I just found some random images that I'm going to use for this, but you'll see what this looks like once we actually preview this page. All right, so if I select youth football, you can see that image is now loaded onto the page. Okay, now here's the important part of this process. As you can see, as I'm changing things, the image is staying. Okay, so the way this feature works is we are adding CSS classes. Now that's useful when you actually want to add a class to something, but that class is going to stay there until you actually remove it. So we have to go back to our form, and we have to add those actions into the display rules themselves. So once we add the CSS class of football image, then if we click on anything else, we want to remove it, or I'm sorry, we want to remove any other possible classes that might be associated with this field because we don't want to show those. So we're going to actually add the CSS class of football image, and we're going to remove the CSS class of hockey image. And we're also going to remove baseball image. So if I clicked on football first, we're going to add this class. Then if I clicked on hockey next, it's going to add this class. Then if I go back and click on football, then hockey image is still going to be there. So I want to make sure that if the user is clicking on multiple items on the form, we're adding the proper class, and we're removing any classes that we don't want, that may have already been assigned by clicking on something else. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. You'll see how this all works once we add everything here. So I'm going to go through here and make sure that I'm removing all of the other classes that I don't want to see, that again may have been added through any other use of a display rule. Add football, remove the other two.
Add hockey, remove the other two.
This is going to be remove football and remove hockey. Okay, back to our page. We'll give that a test. You can see now when I go from youth to football to hockey and then back to football, the hockey image has gone away and it's only showing the football one. And no matter what you pick on, it's always going to show the correct image. Okay, so we can go ahead and fill out this form, and we're done. So we'll select the division that we want. Sure, and there's our cost. Okay, so there's our
This is
registration
the
complete,
items that we
and
need.
that's it for this week's episode of Build It with Tim. It was a quick one this week. I got some fun stuff planned for upcoming episodes, so make sure you stick around, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.